Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Superheroes, Movies, and Superhero Movies. I'm Justin Speck.
I'm John Pelzel.
And today we're talking about Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, starring Daisy Ridley, Adam Driver, John Boyega, Oscar Isaac, Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill, Andy Serkis, Donald Gleason, Anthony Daniels, of course, and several others. This movie was released in 2017, December of 2017, and obviously was the highly anticipated sequel to The Force Awakens. And I saw this, I believe, opening night.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah, like most people in the country, I'm sure, probably saw it opening night. Longest Star Wars movie to date. Oh, the other thing I was going to say is it's going to be a little difficult talking about this movie now that Rise of Skywalker has already come out. So I'm going to try to do my best to pretend like Rise of Skywalker hasn't come out yet.
Yeah. I was going to say, it's not going to be hard to not spoil Rise of Skywalker, but that is a good point. Like, perspectives have changed, obviously.
Right, yeah. We know certain things now that we didn't know when this movie came out. So for the most part, I'm going to try to pretend like Rise of Skywalker hasn't come out. Or at least, because I don't want to go into Skywalker, Rise of Skywalker spoilers. We'll save that for the Rise of Skywalker episode. But it, like I said, like you said, perspectives have changed. We know new information has now come out with the new movie. So it'll be a little difficult to try to talk about that, but we'll.
This is a movie that I really feel like we, and obviously we've had things that have kept us from being able to do episodes.
Right.
This is one that I felt like would have been one of the most important ones to do around the time it came out.
Yeah, I agree.
But here we are. It's all right.
But here we are. Over 2 years later. I think we had the intention of doing an episode when this movie came out, but like you said, things just got in the way. And
we did Force Awakens when it came out.
We did, yeah. I'm pretty sure we did.
Because we did the whole like Star Wars lineup leading up to the release of Force Awakens.
Right? Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's another reason why I wanted to kind of go ahead and talk about this movie, because wanted to finish out the saga rather than delaying it. So, also forgot to mention this movie was written and directed by Rian Johnson, who directed Brick. If you've ever saw that,
never saw it, but I remember you were a big fan of it.
I am still a big fan of that movie. I think it's really good. And Looper. Did you ever see Looper?
No, and I've wanted to. I've heard I really need to see that. That one was a little more mainstream.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and it was, and I loved
Bruce
it.
Willis was in that?
Bruce Willis was in it. Joseph Gordon-Levitt plays the young Bruce Willis. It's a time travel movie, and I liked it a lot. I thought it was really good. I went and saw that one a couple times in the theater. And then Rian Johnson has directed some episodes of Breaking Bad, some really good episodes of Breaking Bad. So before this movie,
that's one of my favorite shows. It might be my second. I might consider that my second favorite show.
What's your first favorite show?
What do you think? My
Game
first
of
favorite. Yes. Now I recently saw, after way delayed after everyone else saw the last season. But come on, like the whole show of Game of Thrones. Like, let's be real here. It's the best show of all time.
I think, not to go off to get sidetracked too much, but I think I would have agreed with you before the last season.
That's what I'm saying. Like, but
the show as a whole, I mean, it's a very well done show, and I still like it a lot. But the last season really just left kind of a bad taste in my mouth, and it's hard to. I remember hearing comparisons to like the Matrix trilogy. Like the Matrix was such a great movie, one of the best movies, one of the best action movies of all time.
It's in my top 20.
And then
the original.
The second and third came out, and people now almost have a hard time liking the first one because they like kind of it's been sullied, if you will, by the second.
No,
and third one.
I still like the first one as much.
I do too. Yeah, I do too. But that's how I kind of almost feel about Game of Thrones.
I understand.
It's like they almost kind of ruined the first good seasons.
But have you gone back and rewatched?
I rewatched the whole show before the last season came out.
Uh-huh.
I have not rewatched it since the last season came out.
I've watched seasons 1 through 3 at least 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's just like my personal favorite season 1.
Yeah.
Like the other stuff was great, but season 1 to me, and it's kind of like I guess Lord of the Rings, like Fellowship of the Ring is my favorite. Which I don't think have we done all the
We've only done Fellowship. We haven't done the other 2.
Oops. Well, that's my favorite. And I don't know, like Eddard Stark to me was just gold. Mm-hmm. Like his character, and with Sean Bean playing him, it was just incredible. And then, well, I don't want to go into. Never mind. We're gonna stop talking about Game of Thrones. We're gonna stop talking about Game of Thrones.
Yeah, this isn't superheroes TV shows and superhero TV shows. Although we could do like a sideshow on that almost.
I was very tempted actually to do some Game of Thrones episodes, but I think that time has passed.
Yeah. So anyway, Breaking Bad. Rian Johnson directed some episodes of that, so I'm a big fan of Rian Johnson. Really, really liked. He was one of those directors where it had kind of gotten to the point where if he was doing a movie, I was going to go see it, because I was, he hadn't really disappointed me at all. Now, when this movie came out, there were a lot of people who were disappointed in Mr. Johnson.
Oh yeah.
Well, let's go back and say, I know you were super pumped for this movie before it came out.
I was super pumped about Force Awakens when I saw the trailer. I was super pumped about Force Awakens before the trailer.
Yeah.
And I remember you weren't.
I wasn't. I think I was just... it had been... Let's see. Episode 3 came out in 2005. Then they had the Clone Wars TV show, and they had, there was that really short kind of Clone Wars animated, like 2D animated series.
Yeah, the one that was done by like the guy that did Samurai Jack.
Yeah, and then there was the other Clone Wars TV show, and then there was that Clone Wars movie. And I think I was just, I don't know, it just felt like there was a lot of Star Wars stuff already going on.
Boy, were you wrong, because you had no idea what was coming.
Well, it sounded like such a bad idea when I first heard about it.
Yeah. I'm just saying, based on what Disney's done, like you thought Star Wars was
being oversaturating the the market, whatever you want to call it. But then once that first trailer came, or that first teaser, I should say, came out,
it was amazing.
Yeah, I was pumped after that.
Yeah, so I was super pumped about that, but the fact that Force Awakens ends without... Well, it doesn't end without Luke. It ends on Luke.
Right.
And that was really the pull for me. And like a lot of, like I'd say most people, you didn't really hear about it, but I knew, and I'm pretty sure I was right, that Luke Skywalker was the pull for these sequels.
Sure.
And
I think the main cast, Luke Skywalker probably is the top, but I think seeing Han Solo come back and having Leia come back, I think there was a pull for those characters as well.
But if it had just been only Luke, I think you would have been close to the same amount of pull.
Probably.
If it had just been Han Solo without Luke, I don't think it would have been as much.
No, I agree. And I think if they had done that, people would have been like, well, where's Han? Or where's, it would have been...
Right. You need them all.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. But especially Luke. And this was Luke's movie. And I was so excited to see Luke Skywalker.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I was very hyped.
And what were your initial thoughts walking out of the theater?
I liked it.
Yeah.
I was happy with it. There were some, nitpicky things, but overall, I thought it was good.
Yeah. I did too. I don't remember being blown away by it or anything. I don't remember walking out of it being like, "Oh my gosh," which I kind of did feel like that. And I think it really was just the ending of The Force Awakens that made me feel like that. I mean, I think The Force Awakens is a good movie, but the way it ended on Luke Skywalker looking at the lightsaber being held out to him.
Right.
I mean, that was a great ending. And so that got you pumped, And then I didn't feel that way coming out of The Last Jedi. I remember being like, that was pretty good. I liked it. But I saw it again, and then it was one of those things where I think I was talking with some coworkers, and I think I started to like it more the more I thought about it. One of those types of things. And I remember seeing it again shortly after I saw it the first time, and liking it more than I did the first time. And then watching it again for the podcast, I actually said out loud to my wife, I was like, this is a good movie. So I actually think I like it more as time goes on, with more repeat viewings and whatnot. Now, are there some problems with the film? I think there are, which we'll get into.
There are.
But
and it's interesting because the second time I watched it, and I think this was, I can't remember if this was the third or fourth time I'd seen it, but I definitely haven't seen it more than 4 if this was the fourth time.
Yeah.
Well, clearly.
I think this was the third time for me.
I think this was the third time for me too, and it's interesting because I think the second time for me, I actually liked it less than I liked the first time.
Yeah. Opposite reaction as I did. Yeah.
And I think this, since you went ahead and went into it, I think the third viewing kind of balanced the two. So
Gotcha.
I think I liked it more than the second time I watched it, but maybe not as much as the first time.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, let's just talk about what are some of the things you liked about it.
Luke.
Well, see, that's interesting because I feel like Luke's portrayal in this movie is one of the things that a lot of people have a problem with.
It is. That's known. Yes. Yeah. And I disagree with him. I think Luke, and I could be being biased here because it's Luke, and like I'm just like, well, whatever he does, like he could, be using the bathroom off the cliff and I'd be fine, which they kind of do.
We almost got that, yeah.
Yeah, I was
drinking
you
the
got
milk
the blue milk,
yeah.
So same category.
Yeah.
But it's just seeing Luke and Mark Hamill's portrayal of Luke, and I remember hearing and reading that when he was reading what his character of Luke was going to be, like he was kind of, I don't know if you'd say disappointed, though. I want to say he was disappointed.
Right.
I'm going to go ahead and say I think he was disappointed. And he was like, this isn't the Luke that, I don't think this is Luke Skywalker. Like when I played Luke, this isn't what Luke would be doing. This isn't who Luke is. So I think he disagreed with what they established Luke had become. And I agree. I would have loved to have seen a more heroic Luke, but I like the Luke that they also gave us.
Yeah, because
it's a Luke that one challenges, I think, the audience to really, it's not the one we expected,
right?
Which is kind of the reaction that Rey has when she goes, and I think that goes well in hand with the story.
I do too. And I think it makes sense with the way Force Awakens set it up, with him being gone and having, been isolated, like he's isolated himself on that island and stuff, and you got to think, why did he do that?
Right.
Why did he
But then you could obviously go into, well, he obviously shouldn't have just gone and isolated himself. And
right. And if that's the case, then you would blame J.J. Abrams for that, because that's how he said it. I mean, he put him there on that island.
Very true.
And so I think on one hand, I know a lot of people blame Rian Johnson for this movie, it is his movie, but they blame Rian Johnson for some of the choices that were made about Luke and about certain characters. And I think, it wouldn't have been as interesting a movie, number one, and I don't think it would have made sense with how Force Awakens set it up if Leia had handed him the lightsaber and he had grabbed it, turned it on, and been like, "Let's go," and gone to fight the First Order.
You're right. We needed a twist.
Right.
And a big twist was Luke is an angry old hermit.
Right, yeah. And like I said, I think it worked for the movie. I think, seeing him grab the lightsaber and then just toss it over his shoulder, that was exactly what I think needed to kind of happen in that scene.
Yeah. It was funny to a degree. I remember the first time I saw that, and I laughed. But at the same time, my heart also kind of hurt.
Yeah.
I was like, what are you doing? That's
no.
Turn it on. Be the hero.
Right. And I think I felt that way too a little bit, because I think all of us wanted to see Luke Skywalker go just kick butt.
And that's what's so cool about the end.
Yes, exactly.
And we'll get into that because the end is so unique. And now that I'm talking about so I split this movie up into two parts because you said we didn't talk about that on the podcast, but you watched it like a week ago, and that's when we were initially supposed to do it.
Yeah.
I didn't finish the movie, and so when I restarted it today, it was almost to the battle scene.
Yeah.
What's the planet?
Crate.
Yeah.
Right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Canto Bight is the
casino planet.
Right.
Yeah.
So after that, they go to Crate.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much where I started the movie from this point, and that is my favorite part of the movie.
Yeah, that's probably my favorite scene of the movie too, is that the whole Crate sequence.
The whole Crate thing's good, but to me
but
really is the Luke
and
Kylo.
Yeah.
Like that just 2 minutes is just awesome.
Yeah.
But we'll get into that later. I'm trying to remember where I was going with that. We were talking about...
Well, I was talking about how, we all wanted to see Luke grab the lightsaber and go fight the First Order, but I think it makes for a more interesting movie to have him not want to do it and have Rey try to be...
you've got a lot on the plate here. Mm-hmm. You have Disney... It's not just Disney. I mean, you've got, an old Mark Hamill. Sorry, Mark. I mean, you're aged.
There's no spring chicken anymore.
But, you have to pass the torch. So you've got to develop this character. You have to have, also you have the tradition of the old Star Wars, movies, where you have technically two. Don't you hate when you're trying to think of a word?
Yes.
And then not only can you not think of the word, but you realize you're trying to think of the word, and you realize that you are having an awkward moment, so you just literally think of nothing.
Yep.
Like you're literally thinking of blank.
Yep.
That's what's happening right now.
I do.
A teacher? A mentor? That works. That's not the word I said for. Right, it worked. Sensei?
Yeah.
Anyway. So you've got two in the original movies. You've got Obi-Wan.
Yep.
And then they do it again with Yoda.
Yep.
So what better...
And I was going to... Sorry. I was going to point out, that in Empire, Yoda doesn't want to teach Luke either.
Right.
He has to be convinced.
And he's an angry old hermit.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I'm like, that's what they're trying to do with Luke. Like, they're trying to kind of make
There's some
Yoda.
Parallels a little bit.
Yes.
There's
and
actually...
that's fine.
Yeah. there are a few parallels with Empire there that I thought of, mostly concerning Rey and Luke and that whole storyline, because there was also Rey leaves to go save her friends or help her friends, just like Luke. Just like Luke leaves early. Yoda doesn't want him to leave. I don't think Luke wanted her to go, and they both leave. They kind of stop their training early to go help their friends.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that. You're right. Of course, Luke didn't hold a lightsaber to Yoda's neck.
No. Did he do that to Rey? No, you're talking about the Kylo Ren thing, the flashback thing.
No, she holds a lightsaber against Luke.
She does it to Luke. Sorry, I was thinking you meant Luke did it to her. But you're right. No, yeah. Sorry.
But refresh me, because I actually this time kind of missed that whole scene. So, like, why did she do that again?
Well, I don't. I watched it a week ago, man.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. Well,
I'm trying to remember where that is in the movie. If it's before he agrees to train her, and she's just trying to.
Oh no, she's been training.
So she's. Then I don't remember. I'd have to.
It's like Rain and. I think that's.
Yeah.
She was revealed by Kylo Ren that he tried to kill.
Yes. So that's one of the things I really like about the movie too, is you get that 3 different versions of the same story. So the first time Luke tells the story about what happened with Ben Solo, he makes it sound like Ben turned on him for no reason really and tried to kill him. And then Rey talks to Kylo. They have that interesting Force link, and he says, "No, that's not what happened. Luke tried to kill me, and so I pulled the building down on top of him and fled." And then Luke tells the truth this time around and says that he
didn't necessarily lie the first time. He withheld
some crucial information. And so the third time he says that he saw the darkness inside Ben and it freaked him out, and for half a second was going to do something about it, and then kind of was like, what am I doing? But unfortunately Ben saw him have that split second reaction and decided to pull the roof down on him.
Yeah.
How did Ben survive that? I mean, I guess maybe he pushed himself away as he did it or something, but it really looks like he just pulls the roof down on top of himself as well.
Well, I'd imagine, if he's using the Force to do that, he also is using the
around
him. That's we'll give him that.
Okay.
We'll give him that. I will. I don't know, will you?
Yeah, no, I'll give him that. It's fine.
Okay.
So that's what it was. She had been talking to Kylo. He told her that Luke tried to kill him, and she was confronting him about it. That's why they kind of got into a little bit of a fight with non-lightsaber weapons, and then when he, I think, knocked her staff or whatever out of her hand, she force pulled the lightsaber to herself and turned it on, and he was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And then that's when he tells the truth, I believe. So I forgot about that scene. Yeah, you're right. So it's always tough when I watch the movie like a week before we end up actually recording.
Yeah.
So I always try to do it like the day before or the day of, if possible. But
and I also just had some Rise of Skywalker like thoughts come in my head, and I was like, no, can't do that.
Can't talk about that. Yeah. So let's talk real quick about like the opening scene of the movie. There's some humor in that opening scene with Oscar Isaac's character Poe Dameron calling General Hux and pretending like he can't hear him, like there's a connection issue.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of, you could also do a lot of Rise of Skywalker with that scene too, but I definitely want to talk about, I want to bring back up Last Jedi before Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, that's fine. We can do that.
Yeah.
But I don't want to talk about the future movie
Right.
during this episode.
Agreed.
So anyway, the first time I saw that scene with Poe Dameron putting him on hold, it was almost cringeworthy.
You think so?
Little eye rolly.
I can definitely see that. I could see that after the first time. The first time, I thought it was pretty funny.
I like it now.
Right. I agree. It's like I said, and that was kind of, I could see how that would be one of the things that kind of meets in the middle.
Yeah.
I wasn't laughing out loud.
No.
But it was funny. And also, I had the subtitles on. I did not know he was calling him
General Hugs. I know. I didn't know that either. I had the subtitles on this time, too. I never picked that up either. That was pretty good. General Hugs. Oh, another criticism that I've seen online about mostly the opening of the movie is the bombers, right? Them dropping the bombs.
Right. I remember hearing a lot of criticism about that too, yeah.
I have zero problem with that.
I do too. What's the criticism? The fact that
it's gravity in space. That they are literally dropping bombs in space.
Get over that. Who cares?
Yeah. I mean,
There's
Star
fire.
Wars. There's fire in space. Exactly. I've never heard a single complaint about fire explosions in space. Or like, this is a different movie, but at the end of Rogue One, which everybody loves Rogue One, and you see Darth Vader standing there, his cape is like going, billowing in the wind or whatever, flapping in the wind.
Yeah.
But it's space. There's no wind.
Right.
Nobody cares about that either, but these bombs being dropped is like a huge issue. No, it's never bothered me. I always thought it was...
The only thing with that scene that I had a slight thing with, and it was very minimal, was obviously the remote.
Kicking the remote, like off the...
Well, yes, you're right. That would not be possible. But then, like, when it falls and she, like, slowly sees it and then grabs it...
There's a timing issue with that, right?
It's very superhuman.
Yeah.
But this time, I don't even think I noticed it the first two times, but this time I noticed that when the remote's falling past her, she's on her back.
Yeah. So she would also...
And when she grabs it, she's on her front. She's on her stomach.
Yeah. Which means she would have had to roll over to grab it. And it falls past her face. Like, I feel like there's a timing issue there. Like, it falls past her face, she watches it go.
Yeah.
Then she'd have to roll over and reach out and grab it. I don't think she would have caught it.
Nope. But it's okay. It's okay because I like it. I think it's a cool scene.
I do too. I actually really like the opening of this movie quite a bit.
I would have been happier if she had like caught it,
as it was falling.
Yeah.
Like
right.
It would have been a pretty still as heroic.
Because you got to have the suspense of, it passed her.
Right.
And she missed her chance. Wait, no, she didn't.
Or did she? Yeah. It's like a false. It's like a fake out, but it's like you said. I don't think it's super necessary. I think it would have been just as cool to see her just kick it down off the thing.
Because you already have to suspend belief that she's able to kick that and make it
enough
move.
To make it move. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, because I watched this movie a week ago, I don't totally remember what happens next after the opening scene. I don't remember if it goes straight to Ray and
technically,
Luke.
I watched it a week ago, too. Like, I only picked back up the end tonight.
Well, let's get into some of the big
It did
moments.
Go to Luke. It did go to Luke.
Ray and Luke after that? Yeah.
Yeah. I think it went into maybe some Leia and Poe conversation.
Right.
And then it went to Luke.
Yeah.
Which is what we were all waiting for.
Finn wakes up and stuff. Right. That's what we want. That's what we want to see. We want to see Ray and Luke on the... So the interesting thing about this movie, too, I think, is usually with other Star Wars movies, especially the prequels, there's a lot of time that goes past in between movies. A lot of time goes... Or there's a lot of time in between, I should say. Right? Even with the original trilogy, I feel like there was a couple of years probably in between movies.
You want to say that, but I don't know. Do you really think that much time went by? A couple years?
I think at least a couple years in between A New Hope and Empire.
I'd say a year tops.
All right. And then maybe a year. I don't know how much time has gone between Empire and
I'm trying to remember
Return.
how does Empire even, or how does Return even start?
Return starts on Tatooine with Jabba the Hutt and the droids coming up to his building.
I'd say that's a few months.
All right. Well, anyway, the point is this movie pretty much takes place directly after Force Awakens. Because,
yes.
I mean, with Rey and Luke, we see them essentially just as Force Awakens ends.
Yeah.
So I take that as Starkiller Base had just been blown up, and
yeah, totally.
I guess.
I mean, unless Rey sat there
for
staring
end,
at Luke, holding the lightsaber
out. And I don't know. I mean, I don't think that happened, but saying it out loud now, I don't feel like Starkiller Base had just been destroyed, and the First Order knows where their base is, and they're
you're right.
To destroy
you're
them.
right. It's almost like there's a little bit of a discrepancy there. Like one story has way more time that has gone by.
Time has advanced. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because also in the scroll, the very first line of the opening title scroll says the First Order reigns, and it was like after having decimated the rebel forces or something like that, and I'm like, well, the last thing that we saw happen was Starkiller Base was destroyed. So I assume First Order has been kind of getting revenge on the rebels for destroying Starkiller Base and has been wiping them out here and there.
Right.
So time must have gone on, and maybe we're just seeing maybe the two things don't take place at the same time.
Right. And then they kind of meld,
meet in the middle kind of.
Yeah.
That's a guess, I don't know.
Right. Well, I mean, let's be honest. Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones were back to back.
In time, well, he's a little boy in the first movie.
Yes, I'm kidding.
I wonder. Every Star Wars movie has opened with something in space.
Yes.
And this movie almost cheats with that a little bit. It starts in space, and it kind of zooms down, and then it cuts to the planet's surface. So there's not... And then you get into the whole bombers and everything in space. But I wonder if this movie would have been... Well, not better necessarily, but I wonder if it would have been a different choice and maybe fix that timeline issue if it had started with Rey and Luke on the island and then seen her there trying to pursue Luke's training... And then gone into it wouldn't have been as exciting of a start though,
right? Because you have that moment where you want to see Luke, and Rey. That's how the last movie ended. And then you get this, which is action and excitement. So it passes, and it's part of the story of what's going on between the Resistance and the New Order,
right?
But like you said, it seems like some time has passed. But then we can finally get to the Rey and Luke. So there's that.
Yeah.
I definitely see from a organization standpoint as a storyline why they did what they did.
I do too. And I think it would have been too slow of a start to start off with Rey and Luke.
Right. Because then you immediately get your hook.
Right, yeah. So it was probably a good choice. But the timeline, like we said, is kind of interesting. So I think what I would say is it essentially goes back in time a little bit once we go to Luke and Rey. And then all that time that she's on the island, that's when that battle and everything is happening. And we, like you said, we kind of meet back.
Because I would say that the time with Luke and Rey and now that we're talking about this, so the time with Luke and Rey has got to be months, right?
Yeah, it's
but
got to be.
But the Resistance being chased by the First Order,
that's like a span
it's a
of
couple.
a day.
It's like a day or two. Yeah.
So you're right. Yeah, that has to be what it is then.
Yeah. We just established what Star Wars: The Last Jedi is.
The timeline. We figured it out. I'm sure we're not the first ones. 2 years after the movie came out, I'm sure we're just now cracking the code. We're the only ones who have done it. So this is in the Force Awakens, we never saw Snoke in person. He was just a hologram.
Right.
So in this,
what do you think of Snoke in person?
He's pretty ugly.
That's pretty judgmental.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I'm sorry,
but it's okay because I agree with you.
No, he's. I think he's pretty cool. I love the look of his like throne room.
Yes.
The bright red with the red guards and everything. I love that whole
agreed
set.
And I mean, and it kind of goes back to Return of the Jedi because the Emperor had the guards and everything.
Yeah.
So it that's one of the things I really liked about Snoke was, and I've heard arguments that Star Wars maybe needed to get away from the feel of the Emperor because they needed a bigger enemy. But to me, I was totally fine with the Emperor kind of continuing, and the guards bring that feeling of the Emperor, and it's just a familiar feel of, we've got the new, but we've also got the tradition.
Right. Yeah.
And I like that.
Right. And that was something that they did in The Force Awakens. It was a blend of new but similar to the original trilogy. And I think this movie kind of continues that a bit. Like I said, with the parallels from Empire Strikes Back.
Right.
And that with the throne room, very similar to how the Emperor probably would have had it, especially with the guards.
That's the thing about Snoke is he brings a very Emperor feel. And of course you got Kylo that's trying to do Vader, and no one will ever hold a candle to Vader. But Kylo I like Kylo too. He's a cool villain, and he's not using the mask in this.
Right. Which I thought was interesting. He does that. He has it in the beginning, and then once Snoke tells him to take that ridiculous thing off,
right? So what do you think was the point of that? So obviously, that was insinuating that Kylo was choosing to wear this mask,
right?
And that the Emperor, or not the Emperor, Snoke was allowing it, but was
but thought it was stupid.
Yeah.
I think.
Was he trying to be Vader?
I think he was trying to be Vader, yes. I think he was trying to follow in his grandfather's footsteps as best as he could without mutilating his own body, I suppose, and needing a mask. But then I think I like that the Emperor tells him to take it off and calls it ridiculous and kind of insults him in that scene and everything, and it pisses him off to the point where he smashes the helmet in the elevator. I like all that. I thought it was...
It's a good point, because Vader needed the mask.
Yeah.
And Kylo did not.
Right.
So he's like, stop.
Yeah, stop being stupid. But I like that dynamic. It's like Kylo thinks that... Well, I don't know I don't know if he thinks that he and Snoke are, buddies or anything, but obviously Snoke looks down on Kylo. He doesn't consider him to be, he's not like Vader was with the Emperor necessarily, which the Emperor didn't consider Vader an equal either, but...
Right, but he definitely was very prized by the Emperor.
Right, and Snoke looks at Kylo more like a child, and so I like that dynamic, and I like that Kylo. I think that whole scene is part of the reason why Kylo Ren ends up cutting him in half later. he wants to take over because nobody takes him seriously, I guess.
I think there's a lot that goes into that choice. And I love, man, let me tell you, when I first saw that, I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I was about to say the Luke Skywalker Kylo Ren scene is probably the best scene in the movie, but the fight scene in Snoke's throne room with his guards, with Kylo and Rey, is my second.
The fight scene is great. It's a great scene, or the fighting. But to me, just the whole like twist of Snoke dying, in the middle of the trilogy was fantastic, and how it was done.
And that's another thing that made people upset was that we were hoping to find out some information on Snoke, and then they kill him in this movie.
And I get
no information.
And I get that because Snoke was an awesome villain.
Mm-hmm. And we did want to know, who was he? How did he rise to power? You know, where does this guy come from?
Right.
And they kill him off with no answers.
But to have that moment, I remember my jaw dropped in the theater. And like, yeah, clearly. Everyone's did. And that is one of the most memorable moments in the trilogy for sure. And then you think Kylo is turning.
Right.
You're like, he's helping Rey, and they're going to now battle, because they battle the guards.
Uh-huh.
And then he turns to her and says, "Join me. We're taking over the galaxy."
We haven't talked about Finn at all. And part of that is I don't want to say he didn't have a whole lot to do in this movie.
He does more towards the end. Well, he doesn't have more to do towards the end. It's just he has more meaningful things to do towards the end.
And going into that, okay, so let's talk about Canto Bight, right? So Finn is going to, originally he's going to abandon ship essentially, and he gets caught by Rose. And then
he's not abandoning ship.
He's going to try to find Rey, right?
Yeah,
I know. So anyway, eventually they figure out a way that they can escape the First Order. The First Order is able to track them through light speed because of something, I forget. And so Finn and Rose are going to go sneak onto the. Well, first they have to find a code breaker, a master code breaker. Apparently, there's only this one person who can do this, that Maz Kanata tells them about. He's on Canto Bight, so they got to go to Canto Bight so that they can get this code breaker, get onto Snoke's ship, and
disable the
tracking beacon or whatever it is. Yeah. So they go to Canto Bight, and at first Finn loves Canto Bight, thinks it's the greatest place on Earth, or greatest place in the universe, I should say. And then Rose tells him, that it's not great, and these people are war profiteers, and they treat people terribly, and Finn sees the ugliness in the planet when all he saw was the surface beauty at first. The first time I saw the movie, Canto Bight and the freeing of the Fathiers, or whatever they're called, those animals, that was my least favorite scene. I didn't dig Canto Bight. I didn't mind the casino stuff. That felt kind of prequel-y-ish to me, which I didn't hate. And I know Rian Johnson's actually kind of a fan of the prequels, so it felt in line.
Is he younger than us?
He's not, but he defends the prequels on like Twitter and stuff. He talks about how George Lucas made a good trilogy about for children about I forget what he says, but he's a defender of the prequel trilogy. So anyway, the casino scene being similar to the prequels is or makes sense, I guess, if you know that.
Yeah.
And also, like I said, just kind of feels...
It definitely feels prequels. I will 100% agree with you on that.
It feels prequel-y. And it just felt kind of cheesy. And then I remember not liking the CGI when they're riding the animals through the streets and through the building.
Right.
And everything.
It's like Obi-Wan riding the iguana.
Right.
Basically.
Yeah. Watching it this time around, though, it didn't bother me as much, but I do remember disliking it the first time I saw it.
I agree. It didn't bother me as much, but I still disliked it.
Yeah. And then my biggest problem with the whole sequence of events, really, is Laura Dern, which we haven't talked about her. She plays Vice Admiral Holdo, I guess. I'm looking at her name here. She refuses to tell Poe Dameron what they're doing. She makes it seem like they're abandoning ship, and Poe Dameron disagrees with that whole plan. They secretly send Rose and Finn to Canto Bight to find the codebreaker and all that stuff. And then once Poe finally realizes what the actual plan is, which is to put them all in transports and get them to this rebel base, because Snoke's ship is not looking for the smaller transports, it's only focusing on the big ship. Which, by the way, one of the notes I wrote was, how did Finn and Rose get to Canto Bight without being noticed by the First Order? And then I realized because they're not looking at small ships. But if Poe knew that Finn and Rose could get away because the First Order doesn't notice the smaller ships leaving the big ship.
Right, then everyone should leave.
Yeah, then he shouldn't have an issue with the whole abandoning ship thing. But also, if Holdo had just told Poe what the plan was, he would have been fine with it. Because as soon as Leia tells him, he's like, that could work. And the whole, middle hour of the movie would not have happened if she had just told him what the plan was.
Right.
And so it feels useless.
I agree.
And even though I really like Benicio del Toro in the movie.
Do you?
I do, actually. I like Benicio del Toro in everything.
Well, I agree. I like him too, but in this, to me, I think I liked him a little better this viewing. But I wanted, I was excited to see what his character was going to be in the movie, and it was pretty underwhelming.
Right. I do like that he is exactly the type of character that he basically says he is, where he doesn't have a side. He'll work for whoever pays him
true.
Or whatever, And so him turning on the good guys and selling them to the bad guys, he's just, that's what he does.
Right.
And I forget what they say to him if he'll live to regret it or something like that. But his last line, I just like how he turns to Finn and he's like, maybe. He walks away.
Yeah.
But anyway, all that just feels, like I said, useless if there had just been better communication among the rebels. Granted, then we wouldn't have had a movie. But it would have been, I think this movie suffers from not knowing what to do with Finn, perhaps. I feel like Rian Johnson said, well, I gotta have Finn do something. And so that's how the whole Canto Bight thing came about. Now, one of the things I do like about Canto Bight is the end of the movie, which I think the message of this movie... So another big reveal, we'll talk about this first, is you find out that Rey's parents were nobody. So that was another big mystery that Force Awakens was setting up, was who was Rey's parents, and everybody thought it was Obi-Wan Kenobi's granddaughter or something, or is she
Well,
Skywalker?
I was going to say, I think the initial thought is she's Luke's daughter.
Right. But then there are people, I think there was a lot of speculation. Luke's daughter seemed too
Sure.
on the nose.
Yeah, exactly. So you go with Luke's daughter, then you're like, wait a minute, that's too much.
Right.
Maybe
so
she's Obi-Wan's.
Maybe she's a Kenobi,
Right.
So a lot of speculation, and I think what Rian Johnson did in this movie I thought was really smart, which is there's no good answer for that. Who is she? What would be a satisfying answer to that mystery? And the best way to do it is be like, she's nobody. And then the message that goes along with that, which is I think kind of one of the messages in the movie is you don't have to be of like this royal bloodline or anything to be a hero or to be a Jedi. You can be a nobody. And at the very end of the movie, the little boy, you see that he's got the Force when he grabs his broom, and then it shows him with that rebel ring on, and it gives this message that, there is that hope, that spark of hope that they were hoping to get with Luke Skywalker. They've got now from other, non-Jedi people.
Right.
Rose and Finn sparked a little bit of that hope in that kid. And that he's also got the Force, so he could potentially become a Jedi in the future. And he's this kid's a nobody.
Well, that's kind of mean. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Everything I say is just gonna be twisted tonight, I guess.
But no, you're right. Like, to me, I honestly did not like that whole, like,
she's a nobody.
Well,
or her parents were nobody.
I was okay with that, but I didn't believe it. And I was assuming with that comment of she's a nobody that the inspiration was from Empire Strikes Back, because supposedly when Vader tells Luke that he's his father, spoiler alert.
Sorry, we already talked about that or that movie.
Yeah, that's true. That a lot of the people didn't believe him, that they thought
really?
he was lying to Luke. So I
can see that.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's another parallel that you can have with this movie, because not only so you have lots of parallels with this movie and Empire. You've got the Luke training. You have the reveal of the bloodline, and you also have the sense of there's no hope.
Right.
Like, by the end of Empire, Han was in
Frozen.
Right, in
Carbonite,
and Luke's hand was cut off, and the Empire was sailing away with victory, and it ends. And that's you can definitely feel that's what they were trying to do with this. Was there's no hope. The First Order is winning. The Resistance is basically running to the caves. That's all they have left. And so I was like, they're switching this. Instead of the villain being honest and saying, I'm your father, they're going to have the villain actually lie like the audience initially thought and tell...
Be dishonest.
Yeah, and tell her that her parents are nobody. So, my initial thought was, I don't believe it. I think there's more to this.
Yeah.
So, but I agree. It was I think a cool decision, because it's not what was expected.
Right. No, it wasn't at all. I wasn't expecting it at all. I thought for sure there was going to be a big reveal there about who her parents were, and it was going to be something crazy, and it was crazy, I guess, but it wasn't the crazy I was expecting.
Right. Exactly. Which is the only, like, that's what they wanted. Was they're like, what can we throw the audience off with?
Mm-hmm.
We can't say, it doesn't matter who we say.
Right.
She's related to. They're expecting her to be related to someone. So What are they not expecting? That it's nothing.
Yeah.
That you've been overthinking it.
Right. And again, that made a lot of people mad. That's another criticism of this movie that I see, is that, they feel like it was just like tossed away, all the speculation and everything that people are having online, that they just, she's nobody. Which like I said, I think really works for the movie, and I really like it a lot. But
and I meant to go into that was, you brought up the boy at the end, and to me, I was not a fan of that. that
ending.
Yeah, that, or just the whole concept of, we're going to show that anyone can be the Force. Like, I wanted there to be a specialness to it.
Mm-hmm.
But when you really do think about it, like, the story, and the whole reason I wanted there to be a specialness to it is because to me it seemed like there always had been.
Right.
Because you've got the Skywalkers.
Mm-hmm.
But that's all the story has really focused on. And when you go back before Anakin, that would, I guess, really be how it was you didn't have to have a bloodline. Like,
right.
People would just be Force sensitive.
And then those kids would get brought to the Jedi Temple for training and stuff, right? Like, they weren't necessarily all related to other Jedis.
Right.
It's kind of almost like Hogwarts.
Right.
Some of them have witches and wizards in their families, and then others are like Hermione. I think Hermione was
right. She was a mudblood.
She had Muggle parents.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's a derogatory.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
So that's how I would see it. Is Jedi kids back then. Some had Jedi family members or whatever, or
right.
had like a Jedi bloodline, if you will, and then others were not.
Right. Right. And like I said, just with the saga focusing on
the Skywalkers.
Name,
yeah,
on names, like you kind of get used to that.
For sure.
And this was kind of saying, don't forget, like,
right.
There was a beginning where people didn't have legends behind their names, and they had to create who they were and their, and the stories that they had.
Yeah. Couple other things I wanted to talk about. The return of one of my favorite characters from Star Wars, if not my favorite character from Star Wars, Yoda. He shows up as a Force ghost, burns down the Jedi tree, and reminds Luke that failure is the greatest teacher.
So, yeah, Yoda's cameo in this is everything that I could have wanted it to be.
I know.
Because to me, Yoda is a very touchy character. Like, to me, you either do him right or you don't.
Yeah.
And to me, the prequels didn't do him very well. And obviously the original movies, that was Yoda. Like, that was established what Yoda was. And I felt like his cameo in this was very reminiscent of what the original Yoda was. And I was very happy with that.
And I love that it was an actual puppet again.
Yeah.
Which is how it was in the original movies. So, and if it was a CG version of, I don't think it was. I'm pretty sure it was a puppet that they, with CG enhancements for the
Yes, I believe you're right, yeah. This was, what do you call it? The effects. Practical. They're practical effects.
Yes, practical effects. Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. So another character I would like to talk about, and one that I think deserves a better story/ending, is Captain Phasma.
Oh my God! Hold on. Are you done talking about Yoda? You didn't really say anything about him.
Well, just that he showed up and was cool.
I mean, well, let's talk about what he had to say. What do you think about what he had to say?
Well, like I said, I mean, he reminds Luke that failure is the greatest teacher, perhaps.
Right.
And
but what about the Jedi?
Well, remind me. What does he say about the Jedi?
Luke pretty much goes into that they need that, he's burning down the tree and that the texts are in there, and Yoda's like, don't worry about those texts. Which I like, because, it's just when he talks, he sounds so wise. And that's, I guess, what the goal is, right? That's what they're going for. So
yeah, that's funny. I do like that he seemingly burns. I mean, he burns down the tree for sure, but he seemingly burns the text as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, why else would he burn the tree? Like, what didn't something happen? Like Luke tries to put it. It's like something happens where it wasn't gonna burn, and then Yoda's like, "Nope, that's happening. It's burning."
Yeah, I don't remember.
I don't remember
exactly,
what it was, but it had something to do with like the lightning or something. And Yoda like made the fire happen, even though it was going to happen, and then it was prevented. Like Yoda was like, "No, it's
happening." Yeah, and then Luke, I guess, is like, "Wait, no." So he tries to run in to save the texts, but he can't. Like a fireball kind of pushes him out or whatever.
I think that's what Yoda did. Was like
yeah.
push Luke out of there, maybe. Is what it was.
And he says something like the texts, or Rey has all the,
right.
There's nothing in there that she doesn't currently possess, or
right.
something like that. And you find out at the end of the movie that she's actually taken the texts and they're in the Millennium Falcon, which I thought was a cool little. The way he said it and everything, I thought that was pretty cool when you find that out that she's got the books actually. So yeah, no Yoda.
So what was he trying to teach there then? He wasn't burning the texts.
I think he was just trying to.
You don't need the text, Luke, but it's okay because we actually have them.
Right. I mean, here's if I wonder if Rey had actually left the books in the tree, would Yoda have burned the tree?
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
It's like you can burn the books because they're not actually in there.
Because they're not actually there. But I think he could have flat out told Luke and said, Rey's got the books, all right? You're wasting time here. But I think he didn't tell him that and made him think that they were burning the books because he wanted to like force Luke into action, basically. He wanted him to get away from this island and go do what needed to be done rather than thinking that he was preserving, even though he was planning on burning it down anyway. I don't know. I just think that he was trying to spark.
Yeah, it was strange because Luke's like, the Jedi needs to end, and then like the books are catching on fire, and he's like, no, wait,
exactly. Yeah. He has second thoughts basically, but I think that's what I think the whole scene was Yoda telling Luke, it's okay that you failed. Failure is is a good teacher, and you need to get out there and go get him. I don't know, but I do like that scene a lot. I think it's a good scene.
Yeah. Agreed. And it didn't feel forced.
No, it didn't, not at all.
Like it was forced,
right?
But it didn't feel that way.
Well, you what do you mean? It was forced? You think he was forced to have Yoda in the movie?
I mean, yeah. Let's be honest. Like, if Yoda wasn't as well liked of a character as he was, he wouldn't have been in the movie. Like, it was fan service. It really was.
I don't know if I totally agree with that. I think it was cool for the fans to see Yoda, and I think we all expected. Well, I don't know if we expected, but I think we kind of hoped that Yoda would show up because
I expected it.
Right, and so it was cool to get that scene. But I do think it worked for the story in the movie. I don't think it was
no. I'm not saying it didn't work. Just because I'm saying it was forced in there I'm not saying it didn't work. I'm just saying I'm not sure if it would have been in the movie if it wasn't we need to put Yoda in the movie. It worked really well, but what I'm saying is I don't think it was the movie would have worked with or without it.
Gotcha. Well, now let's talk about Captain Phasma.
Why? Poor Captain Phasma. Oh my gosh. Yeah. They just destroyed her.
She had the potential to be such an awesome side character. She had the potential to be like the Boba Fett of
and that's what they
trilogy.
That's what they were going for.
Sure. And I feel like she didn't get a whole lot of time in the first movie to shine.
Right. It was like, hey, we're going to set her up.
Right. She's going to be awesome in the second movie.
Right.
And then she shows up for one scene and gets beaten pretty easily by Finn and then falls to her death.
It was terrible.
I thought it was such a waste. I agree.
yeah, I was thinking, and I thought that the first time I saw it, second time I saw it, and this time I was like, why?
It's like, why is she even in the movie?
Right. It's like,
right.
We have this character. We need to address her. I don't want to use her anymore. Just get rid of her.
Yeah.
And a big waste.
Yeah, I agree. She could have been really cool. But no.
She could have been, and unfortunately, she wasn't. It wasn't just that they wasted her, like, as far as getting rid of her, but her character wasn't cool either.
Well, yeah. I mean, well, she, again, like in this movie, she had.
That's what I'm saying.
Literally no screen time.
Yeah, what they gave her, they're like, you're a traitor. Like, there was.
She had no character. I mean, there was no character development for her at all.
It was like, we're making a cool looking character. We want to do something with her. Let's make her call him a traitor, and then.
Right, it's like she only cared about the fact that he...
Like, why did she even care about him at all?
I don't know. He was an employee of hers in the first movie, and he escaped.
How does she even remember who he was?
I don't know.
It was bad.
Yeah,
it was bad.
No, I agree. It was real. That's probably one of my least favorite things about this movie is the Captain Phasma.
Yeah, I would say that probably outdoes Canto Bight.
Yeah. Canto Bight and Captain Phasma are the top of the list for least favorite scenes. Before I forget, I feel like we're getting kind of close to the end here, but something just came up. We haven't talked about Leia at all. And there's a scene with Leia that was controversial as well, if you will, where she gets
controversial's not necessarily, I would say split. Well, controversial is a weird word to use for wouldn't necessarily controversial, just people
were split on whether or not they liked it or not. Yeah. I get it. Yeah. It's not controversial, I guess. But anyway, she gets her ship gets shot at, and there's a big hole in the hull or whatever you want to call it, and she gets sucked out into space, and then.
But you also have a really, I think, important moment there with Kylo Ren.
Yeah, where he's going to shoot, but then decides not to.
Right.
I agree. I think that was a big moment for him, and it was I like that scene too, and I like his acting in that scene where when whoever it is that ends up actually shooting the ship, you see it on his face where he's almost like regretful kind of, but then also is like, well, it happened now, and kind of decides to try to move on.
Right.
Sort of all done just with his expression and everything. I think he does a really good job. I really like Adam Driver. I think he's a good actor, and I think he does a good job in these movies too.
I like Kylo Ren.
Yeah. So anyway, how did you feel about the
Mary Poppins?
Yeah, I was gonna say people compare it to Mary Poppins.
I love it.
Do you?
Yes.
I actually really like it too. I think it works really well, and I think it's pretty cool. It's a cool.
I think the first time I saw it, man, I think I might have gotten like chills,
goosebumps. Yeah.
Yeah, like it was the reveal that Leia had been training, that she had knowledge of the Force and she could use it, and I just thought it was beautiful.
Yeah.
Seeing her come to consciousness and then pull herself back to safety, like.
Yeah.
I loved it, and I just did not get the criticism for it.
I agree with you. I think it looked really cool. I think it works really well. I love, like you said, I think I got chills when I saw Leia.
And you got the music.
Yeah. Speaking of music, not to move on from that scene already, but John Williams, of course, does the score for these new movies, and John Williams is probably the greatest composer of all time.
There's no probably. He is.
However, that being said, I don't feel like any music in this movie or Force Awakens stands out. There's not a theme.
Right, you're right.
The music's amazing.
That's new.
Yeah, there's not a new theme in these movies that stands out like, obviously with the first Star Wars, you had the Star Wars theme. That was probably the big theme of the movie. And then Empire, you've got the Imperial March. Return of the Jedi, I guess you don't really get anything too new except for maybe like that.
Was
song
the
at the end
Imperial
of the
March
movie.
not in A New Hope?
No, I don't think so. I think it was only in Empire.
Huh. That's amazing. I did not know that.
And then I could be wrong, but I'm fairly certain it's not in A New Hope. And then in the prequel, in Phantom Menace anyway, you got Duel of the Fates, which is incredible. And then I don't really remember a whole lot. I don't know if there's anything that stands out in episode 2 or 3, but in these movies, there's nothing that really stands out as like an incredible
You're right.
new theme that just, that I could hum right now. Now that's not to say the score is bad. I think the music is great.
Right.
But I thought it was interesting that Kylo Ren doesn't get like a cool new theme.
Oh, he does. He does. Can you not hear it?
No, not right now. I can't think of it.
It's like
But-
da-da, da-da. Right?
I have no idea. I'll have to go listen to the soundtrack. I've got the score on my phone, but
I think you
it just doesn't stand out as much as like the Imperial March.
when you hear it, you'll be like, "That's the new."
That's Kylo Ren's music.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes. But you're right. Like, it's nothing like when I think of the new trilogy. That score doesn't enter my mind.
Right. Like, even though it's only in the first prequel,
and
when
if
I think of the prequels, I think of Duel of the Fates.
Right. And I'm curious if I heard his theme without knowing it was his. I don't know if I would know it was.
Right.
Like, I don't know if I'd be like, "Oh, that's Kylo Ren." I'm maybe I would think it. But yeah, when you hear it, you'll know.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Um.
And it's pretty cool. It's a good theme.
Yeah. Maybe I just never picked up on it like obviously you do with the other themes.
When you listen, you will. You'll be like, how could I have forgotten that? Yeah, trust me.
All right. So do you want to talk about Crate?
No.
Okay.
Oh, Crate. Yes, let's talk about Crate.
So originally they land on Crate, and then the Empire obviously comes down with kind of newer looking AT-ATs or AT-ATs, if depending on who you talk to.
I've always said AT-ATs.
I have too. And
apparently, it's AT-ATs. According to Kevin Smith, it's AT-ATs.
Which doesn't make any sense to me because the two-legged ones are AT-STs, so are those
Right.
ATs?
Right.
Those are ATs.
I've always said AT-ATs. I'm always going to say AT-ATs.
Yeah, I'm going to say AT-AT too because I don't know why you would call it an AT-AT and then an AT-ST.
Right.
That doesn't make sense to me. So, AT-AT. Anyway, and then they have like a battering ram, which was used from Death Star technology, which I thought was interesting.
You talking about the gun?
Yeah, the one that takes forever to power up.
Right.
And the one they're trying to take out. I like the I don't know, fighter jet. They're not jets, but the fighter ships that they use on the planet that have to have the little tail digging into the sand or whatever it is.
I think that was all aesthetic.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I think the only reason they did that is so they could have that red like salt stuff popping up in the back, which I agree. Which it does look cool.
Yeah.
But I do like that the ships are also old, because that is an abandoned rebel base, and
but if you notice
Poe puts
too,
his foot through the bottom of it or something.
Yeah. But if you notice too, there's a scene that is very forced as to we need to make sure that people know why that red dust is coming up, and it's when that like the commander like goes and steps, and then you see like one of the soldiers like look and he sees the red foot mark. He's like, what? And then he like dips his fingers in there and looks at it and he goes, salt. I felt like that was a little much.
Well, you gotta teach the audience, I guess.
You do. You do.
But I like the look of that planet though. I think it's cool with the red.
I agree.
And the white. It's almost Hoth looking, but then with the red, you've got red is a prominent color in this movie, I guess. I wonder what it means. The first time I saw this movie, I thought Finn should have died. It just because it seemed like it would have been a fitting end for his character.
That's where I was going with Finn, like having, like,
more to do at the end, more meaningful things.
His heroic moment was stolen from him by stupid Rose. No, I like Rose.
I like Rose too, and I do. Watching it now, I think I don't know if I feel the same way anymore. I don't know if I feel like he should have died, but it was a heroic moment for Finn, and it does feel like it was stolen from him. I like Rose, but I don't like the scene where Finn runs up and he's like, "Why did you do that?" And she's like, I forget what she says, but then she like kind of passes out or something, and it just looks awkward.
Right. Well, first she kisses him.
Right. Yeah. Forget what she says though. She says something like, "We save the ones we love," or
something along those lines. Yeah.
So yeah, but anyway, the first time I saw it, I was like, "Oh man, they should have had Finn go out in a blaze of glory right there." But they didn't. Rose came and saved the day, or saved him, didn't save the day. Saved him, and then they somehow didn't get blown to bits by the AT-ATs there. They just let them run back to the base, I guess. Guess they assumed. I also don't know how Rose or Finn survived. Like, she could have easily just killed him by running into his ship that way. They could have both just blown up right then. That's a dangerous move on her part.
Yeah. It was. So there's some stuff in that scene that, like we were just talking about, could have maybe been a little hokey.
Yeah.
Depending on how you look at it. But then we get to the glorious moment of Luke Skywalker.
Mm-hmm. And the first time I saw the movie, when he shows up, I thought to myself, why did he take the time to dye his beard? Which should have been a clue. It should have really stood out to me like, oh, maybe he's not.
I mean, no one's going to think that because that had never been done before.
Right.
Like, that's just not something you would think about.
Yeah.
So.
Because he had like a fairly gray beard on the island. I forget what the island's name is. It's like Act 2 or something.
Right.
And then he shows up and he's got a brown beard with brown hair, and I'm like, I could just see him like standing over the sink with some stone sink on that island, and he's like dyeing his beard before he goes.
I'm gonna see Leia. Gotta look good. I haven't seen her for a while.
Can't let Kylo think I'm too old. Well, he wouldn't call him Kylo. I guess he would call him Ben.
Yeah. I really like the whole feud between that. And when he goes and walks out there, first of all, the scene between him and Leia is great.
Mm-hmm.
Just the send-off. Like her reaction to seeing him. And
she also reacts when he takes her hand.
Yes.
She also reacts.
Well, that's because she feels
that he's not actually there.
Right.
And he puts the dice in her hand, which I thought was interesting. But then later the dice disappear, so I guess the dice were a projection too. But yeah, I never noticed it the first. I guess maybe I didn't notice it the first 2 times I watched it. But her reaction when he takes her hand, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool that they did that because.
Well, yeah. Once again, I don't think unless you just miraculously thought that he could project himself from.
Right.
Like no one's gonna think that. So yeah, I wouldn't expect anyone to realize the first time viewing that that's a projection and that she's realizing that he's not actually touching her.
Right. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. And then when he goes out there and stands there, like obviously later you realize why that he's not as brave as he's appearing to be, but it doesn't matter. Even watching the scene, knowing that he knows that he's invincible out there, to see him go out there and stand in front of those AT-ATs is amazing. And Kylo's reaction of, I want you to fire every gun at him.
And then I love General Hux's, he's got a great line in there. After they finally stop shooting, he's like, "Do you think you got him?"
Right. Yes, the Hux stuff in that is great. Hux, I like Hux in the trilogy most of the time. Occasionally he feels to me like he might be like his character might be being forced a little bit.
He's kind of over the top, but I like it.
Yeah, I'd say 90% of the time I'm definitely for Hux and his performance, and that was definitely one of them. And when he gets thrown against the wall too, that was that was great.
That was good.
But when it to see Luke's reaction and the shoulder. Yeah, I remember people complaining about that. I'm like,
no, I love it.
Yeah, it's amazing. Because you can also see some concern in Luke's face, and now that you realize that he's not there, and you'd be like, what would he be worried about? And I think he's concerned that he's going to be revealed
too soon.
Yes,
before they can get out.
Right.
Yeah.
Because he's like, dude, I just got shot, about 500 times by AT-ATs, and here I am.
So I think, that's a good point. I never really noticed the concern on his face, but you might be right, and that might be part of the reason why he does the shoulder thing, is to just make Kylo mad. To take.
Right. Get him not thinking and just
why is he
go
still
off
alive?
emotions. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
like I've got to kill him,
which makes me like it even more. The shoulder flick, because there's like a reason for it. It's not just to be like, look how cool I am.
You're right. Yeah, that could be I better do something like just to get him off his focus.
Yeah,
and he does, and he goes down there to fight him. And it's so good. As quick as it is, it's one of my favorite. I think it's one of my favorite scenes in all of the Star Wars movies.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's really the scene I think that makes this movie hold up so well. As far as where I hold it, because I remember you telling me it's the worst rated Star Wars movie.
No, I'm not. I don't know. Well, by audiences, yes,
right.
I believe so. Not by critics. Critics really like this movie, but audiences maybe. I don't remember what the audiences said about Rise of Skywalker. I'd have to look it up. So the critics gave it a 90%, that's not true. 90% of critics liked it, or gave it a favorable review, according to Rotten Tomatoes. Only 43% of audiences liked it. Which is super low, in my opinion. This movie,
yeah.
I lean more with the critics on this one.
Yeah, I do too.
I don't have a whole lot more to talk about with this movie. I do have one more note that I wrote down.
Yeah, I haven't even gone over my note yet, but it deals with the last part of the movie, so it works. Go ahead, though.
Well, I was going to say, you go ahead, because mine doesn't have to do with this particular scene.
Well, what I was going to say was, it's the moment where Leia and Poe are like, Poe's talking about the way out, and he's like, kind of, directing the people, and then it cuts to Leia, and she's like, why are you guys looking to me? Follow him. And it was, to me, that was obviously a line that was signaling to the audience, we're passing the torch on to the next generation. Like, I'm Leia, the leader, but start following him now.
Right.
And when she said that, and I don't know if it's just because I've only seen this movie, 3 times, and I've seen the original trilogy 100 times.
Right.
But to me, it made me realize, and as much screen time as Poe has, and I love Poe, he's such a great character, and we didn't really talk about him. But as much screen time as he has, I also feel like he still almost feels like almost like a stranger and a new character. Like there's so much you don't know about him, and and I was like, how after the end of the second movie can I feel like I don't even really know Poe?
Right.
But the end of Empire, the second movie, the original trilogy, like we felt so connected to,
all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's missing here? And I didn't know if it was because I was like, if this had been a show, which, now audiences kind of require that just super in-depth episodes of a season. Like, would we feel more connected to Poe? And just how little connected I felt to him after 2 movies. Even though I love his character, I just don't know anything about him.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. Did you feel that?
I guess I'd never really thought about it, but you're absolutely right. Like they don't really talk about who he is or where he comes from or why he does what he does. He's just, he just does stuff.
Right.
I do like his story in this movie. I like how he is, the lessons he learns and stuff. But you're right. No, I mean, I don't really feel like I connect to any of the characters. Maybe Rey.
I don't really feel that connected to Rey either.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't really feel like I connect to any of the characters the way you do with the original cast,
right?
In the original trilogy. So I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a writing issue or what. I mean, I guess it would be, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I don't know. But to me, that's the moment where I realized I was like, follow him. I was like, you're Leia.
Right.
Like, I like Poe, but
yeah.
But this is the end of the second movie, and after Empire, like, you were Leia, and he's Poe. Which, anyway, I don't know. Like I said, Poe's a really good. In Force Awakens, he might have been at least my most anticipated character. And Oscar Isaac is a great actor. Like, I love the way he portrays Poe, but there's just something missing.
Yeah, it's a good question. I almost would feel like I have to rewatch this trilogy again to kind of,
like you said, he learns lessons and stuff, but it's almost like that's it.
Right.
Like it's almost like he's just learning lessons. But who is Poe?
Well, I was gonna say part of the problem maybe is that we don't ever have like a quiet, kind of sit down talk scene with him.
Right.
It's all of his scenes are basically, we've got to defeat the First Order.
Right.
We got to do this. We got to do this.
Right.
They're not, they're trying to take this away from us. We got to do this. So it's all go, 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 go. And
right.
There's I think maybe there's one small moment with him and Leia, but they don't.
And that's the other thing, and I'll get more into that. I didn't want to bring it up, but I'll get more into that with Rise of Skywalker. Mm-hmm. And I noticed it at the end of this too. Is how fast the story really does go. Like, there's so much going on that there's so much towards the objective of what the story's trying to do. Like by the end of it, that there's not a time to really just sit down and breathe with what's going on.
Right.
Like, you get it all. Like, you understand it. It's explained to you. But to really sit down and soak it up and experience it, you don't have that time.
Right.
which is what something I think the original trilogy.
It was balanced well.
Yeah, it really did. Like when you were on Hoth, you were on Hoth, and you experienced those moments with Luke, and on Dagobah, like you were there with Yoda.
Yeah.
And this,
well, like in the first movie too, with Han Solo, they're flying to. Are they going to Alderaan? I forget where they're going, but
right on the ship.
And Han is talking about the Force and how he doesn't believe in the.
And you've got all that time on the ship.
Yeah.
Like you're there. And it's not just we're here and Canto Bite running to a prison and then we got to get out of here real quick because we're going here. It's just so, I don't know. You need to have the sit down quality.
Yeah. You got to have the quiet moments to go along with the.
Yeah, and I think that's what this trilogy is missing.
And do you think it's a problem with audiences now, where
yes, absolutely,
audiences can't?
I don't think it's a problem with the audiences. I think it's a problem with. I don't think the audience is incapable of doing that.
Of enjoying the quiet moments.
Yeah, it's that the people that are producing the movies are afraid that the audience
can't handle it.
Yeah,
right.
So they're taking the safe route, and they're like, let's make it exciting and jumpy and all this stuff.
I could see that. I could see that for sure. And then I could also see, they put those scenes in, and the studios or whatever are saying, don't you think it slows down too much here or something,
And don't get me wrong, audiences have changed, and I think that there is a risk that the audience wouldn't accept it, but it's not because it's slower, it's because the writing wasn't done right. You can have those slower scenes, it just has to be done properly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense. So my note has nothing to do with anything really, but when this movie came out 2 years ago, one of my old coworkers from the Weather Channel posted this on Facebook, and it cracked me up, and so I wanted to share it with you. And so, Laura Dern is in this movie, right? He just wrote this out in Facebook, and I could hear it immediately. Dern, 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 Laura Dern, Laura Dern. I thought that was hilarious.
Wow.
Yep. Well, let's talk about a rating.
Speaking real quick, I wanted to say Laura Dern. I didn't dislike her character as much as everyone else did.
No, I didn't either.
Like she did a good job acting. It was just almost.
I don't know why her hair was purple, but
right. To me, it was almost like she had a little bit of the Captain Phasma going for her, where like her character had potential, but it's just they had her there to give a couple lines and
to keep Poe from doing what.
Yeah, I was gonna say to make roadblocks, basically.
Yeah, basically. The one thing I did like about her character was after Leia wakes up and she stuns Poe and knocks him out, you see Laura Dern looking at him and she's like, he's a troublemaker, and then she goes, I like him. And so I liked that even though there was that tension between Poe and her,
right,
she didn't have any like ill will towards him,
right.
I thought that was kind of a cool thing. And I like Laura Dern's big moment, which is her sending this ship into light speed going through all those other ships.
Right. And I personally thought that should have been Leia.
Mm. Yeah.
But only because of what happened with her passing in real life.
Yeah.
Like, had that not been the case, no. But
right.
I felt like that would have been an amazing send-off to her character, with the fact that they weren't able to set that up properly.
Right.
Obviously without being able to know what was going to happen. But we'll talk more about that later in Rise of the Skywalker. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm glad you reminded me of that Lightspeed scene, because I always thought that was cool. The way that she sends the ship into the other ships, thought that was pretty. I like the look of that scene and how it kind of goes. The audio kind of goes out and then it comes back once she does it and everything. So anyway, how many Laura Derns would you give it?
How many Laura Derns would I give it? With half Laura Derns,
yes,
included,
half Derns.
Out of 5, I give it 4 Laura Derns out of 5.
Yep, I would agree with you 100%. 4 Laura Derns out of 5. I like it a lot. When we do the Rise of Skywalker episode, I want to talk about how we rank all 9 movies, basically, if we can kind of do that.
Sure.
And so I don't want to go into detail about where this movie sits amongst, but I do really enjoy this movie, and even though it is the longest Star Wars, I really had kind of fun watching it this time around. Not that I didn't have fun watching it before, but
right.
I'm glad that I didn't watch it this time and feel disappointed or
right.
Or it felt long.
When you said you looked over to your wife and said, "This is a good movie," like that made me happy because it is. Yeah. It's a good movie.
It is a good movie. It is. I agree, and I like that. I'm glad that you like it because I couldn't remember how you felt about it, and I was a little worried you fell into that camp of just hating it.
Oh no, not even
close.
I
wasn't sure. Yeah, so that made me happy too.
Yeah.
And some people really go too far with it. I think when Rian Johnson had a movie come out last year, I think called Knives Out, and I saw people online talking about how they were going to boycott that movie
because of Last Jedi.
Yeah, like they didn't want him to succeed with any other film because this film was terrible to them, which I think is just stupid.
Yeah,
but
of course, you're right. There's no thinking about it. It is stupid.
So I'm still a big fan of Rian Johnson. I'll still see whatever he puts out. I saw Knives Out. I liked it a lot. Bought it on Blu-ray when it came out.
I need to see Looper for sure, and Brick.
And Knives Out.
And Knives Out.
Well, we'd love to know what you think about Star Wars The Last Jedi. You can always leave a comment on our website, www.cinemaheroes.com. You can comment on our Facebook page, facebook.com/SM and SM podcast, or you can tweet at us @CinemaHeroes. I think that about wraps it up for this episode. I'm Justin Speck.
I'm John Pelzel.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing.